In a case that stunned the nation, an ex-police chief, a man once trusted to uphold the law, found himself tangled in a web of lies, betrayal, and unimaginable darkness. John Doe was a respected figure in his community, known for his years of service and dedication to keeping the streets safe. But beneath that facade, hidden from the public eye, was a man with a dangerous secret, one that would cost him everything. A world of drugs, lies, and corruption was about to crumble, and the one person who threatened to expose it all, his pregnant girlfriend, would pay the ultimate price. For Jessica, life was supposed to be just beginning. She had dreams of raising her child with the man she loved. But those dreams were shattered when she uncovered the horrifying truth about the man she trusted most. Days before she was ready to expose his connection to a $10 million drug operation, her life was cruelly cut short. Her death would leave a hole in her family's heart, and a mystery that would haunt the town for years to come. How did it come to this? How did a man sworn to protect his community end up murdering the mother of his unborn child? What would drive someone to kill a pregnant woman? And why did he feel the need to silence her just days before she threatened to unravel everything he had worked so hard to hide? Meet 47-year-old John Doe, a man who once held a position of power and respect in his small Florida town. For years, he was known as the man who upheld the law, a stalwart protector of the community. He was the kind of officer you'd expect to see on the front lines of a battle for justice, someone people trusted with their lives. His name was synonymous with integrity. Everyone believed he was above reproach. He had a steady job, a respectable career, and was deeply embedded in the town's fabric. To the world, John's life appeared perfect. He was the epitome of success, the kind of man you'd expect to see on the cover of a magazine or giving a speech about law enforcement at a town hall meeting. But beneath the polished surface, behind those closed doors, John was hiding something far darker than anyone could have imagined. Behind that uniform and the shield that people admired was a man drowning in a dangerous world, a world filled with lies, corruption, and secrets that would eventually destroy everything he had worked for. John wasn't just an ex-police chief, he was also an active participant in something much more sinister, a criminal empire that he had carefully crafted over the years. While he portrayed himself as the community hero, he was secretly the mastermind behind a multi-million-dollar drug ring, moving narcotics through the streets under the radar. His life, built on this delicate web of lies and betrayal, was about to collapse, but no one knew it, not even his fiancée, Jessica. Then there's Jessica, a woman who, like most people, was swept up in the idea of the perfect relationship. She was pregnant with John's child, expecting to start a family with the man she loved. Their life seemed idyllic, pictures of happy moments, shared dreams of what their future together would look like. Jessica envisioned a home filled with laughter, a life of love, and the joy of raising a child. She trusted John, believed in him completely, and had no reason to question the man she was about to marry. But what Jessica didn't know was that the man she loved was a stranger in disguise, a man whose darkest secrets were lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to tear their life apart. John had been operating in the shadows for years, and Jessica had no idea that her perfect life was built on a foundation of sand. What no one knew was that he was a key player in a $10 million drug operation, supplying narcotics to the streets while posing as a defender of the law. John wasn't just a small-time player in a larger criminal scheme. He was at the heart of it. The drugs, the money, the power, it all flowed through him, and no one could have guessed that the man they thought they knew was actually playing a dangerous game. For years, he managed to keep his dual life hidden, carefully balancing his role as an ex-police chief with his underworld dealings, keeping both worlds apart with precision and deceit. But every secret has its breaking point, and Jessica was about to discover his. Jessica was no fool. She wasn't blind to the world around her. As the months went by, little things began to bother her. She'd find strange things hidden in his office, cryptic messages on his phone, unexplained money that John had trouble explaining. The cracks in his story started to show. She began asking questions, digging deeper into the things that didn't add up. At first, John tried to cover it up, dismissing her concerns with lies and half-truths. But the more she dug, the more she uncovered. The hidden life he had so carefully constructed was falling apart, and Jessica was getting closer to exposing it all. She started putting the pieces together. The lies didn't add up anymore. The phone calls he'd make in the middle of the night, the odd connections she'd overhear him make, she pieced them together and saw something she hadn't wanted to see. John's involvement in a criminal drug ring was no longer just a suspicion. It was real, and it was bigger than anything she could have imagined. She began researching the drug trade in Florida, making connections between what John had told her and the stories she was finding in the news. Slowly, the truth began to surface, and with it came a horrifying realization. Her fiancé, the father of her child, was deeply embedded in the very world she had been warned about. As Jessica got closer to uncovering the full scope of John's involvement, she faced a chilling choice: keep quiet and protect their life together, or expose him and risk everything. But Jessica wasn't the type of woman to sit back and stay silent. She could no longer turn a blind eye to the truth. She had already found too much, and the burden of knowing would weigh on her conscience forever. She couldn't let him destroy everything she believed in, not when she had the power to stop him. So, she decided to confront him. She threatened to expose his role in the $10 million drug ring, to tear apart the life they had built. That decision would change everything. The moment Jessica confronted John, the stakes escalated. Her threat was the final straw for a man who had spent years hiding his criminal life from the world. He realized that the walls were closing in, and the life he had worked so hard to keep hidden was about to be exposed. John's reaction to her threat would determine their future, and Jessica's fate. He knew he couldn't let her go public with the truth. She knew too much. She had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. John's life, which had been built on secrecy and lies, was spiraling out of control. But there was one thing he would do to stop it all. The stakes were too high, and he would stop at nothing to keep his dark world from collapsing. Jessica didn't know it yet, but by confronting John, she had sealed her fate. She had stepped into a trap that she would not be able to escape. The very man she trusted, the father of her child, was the one who would take her life to protect his own. She was walking into a nightmare she couldn't imagine, and the repercussions of her decision would be felt forever. It was the night of April 15, 2024. The air was thick with tension, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. John Doe had made his decision, one that could never be undone. Jessica had pushed too far, uncovered too much. She had become a threat, and in John's world, threats had to be eliminated. That evening, John reached out to Jessica, his voice calm, almost soothing. He asked to meet her, just the two of them. He told her they needed to talk, to clear the air. Maybe they could still find a way forward, find a way to make things work. Maybe they could still be a family. Jessica, unaware of the darkness lurking behind his words, agreed. After all, she loved him. This was the father of her unborn child. Whatever anger or fear she felt, she still believed there was a part of him worth saving. She never could have imagined that this conversation would be her last. As Jessica drove to their meeting spot, she had no idea that John had already decided her fate. He had chosen a secluded area, far from the prying eyes of the public, a place where no one would hear her screams, a place where no one would come to her rescue. As she pulled up, she saw him waiting, standing there in the dim glow of a street lamp, his face unreadable. She stepped out of her car, heart pounding, hoping for an explanation, an apology, even. She wanted to believe there was still something left of the man she once loved. But John wasn't there to make amends. He wasn't there to talk. He was there to make sure Jessica never spoke again. In the silence of that lonely night, Jessica's fate was sealed. The moment she realized the danger she was in, it was already too late. John acted swiftly, ruthlessly. Whether it was planned to the last detail or a moment of desperation, no one will ever truly know. What is certain is that in cold blood John ended her life, along with the life of their unborn child. Her dreams of raising a family? Gone. Her plans to expose John's secrets? Silenced. Her future? Erased in an instant. The motive? Fear. Fear of losing everything. Fear of being exposed. Fear that the empire he had built on lies, betrayal, and blood would come crumbling down the moment Jessica opened her mouth. And in John's world, that simply wasn't an option. But what John didn't realize in that moment, as he stood over the lifeless body of the woman who once trusted him, was that this was only the beginning. He thought he had eliminated the problem, erased the threat. But he had only set off a chain of events that would spiral out of his control. Because what happened next would send shockwaves through the justice system. The call came in just after dawn. A body had been found. At first, investigators weren't sure what they were dealing with. A missing persons case? A random act of violence? But as they uncovered more details, a much darker picture began to emerge. Jessica had been reported missing just hours before, her family desperate for answers. She had told a close friend that she was meeting John that night, that she had something important to discuss with him. But after that, nothing. No calls. No messages. Silence. When authorities found Jessica's body in a remote location, it was clear this wasn't a disappearance. This was a murder. And not just any murder. This was a crime of desperation, a brutal attempt to silence the one person who knew too much. Investigators began connecting the dots, piecing together the final moments of Jessica's life. Who she had spoken to, where she had been, and most importantly, who had the most to lose from her death. All signs pointed to one man, John Doe. But the deeper they dug, the more horrifying the truth became. This wasn't just about one murder. This was bigger. Jessica had threatened to expose something that could take down more than just John. Through forensic evidence, witness statements, and digital footprints, detectives unraveled the truth. John Doe, the once respected ex-police chief, had been running a massive drug operation right under the nose of law enforcement. The very man who had sworn to protect and serve was in fact one of the masterminds behind a $10 million drug ring. And Jessica? She had discovered the truth. She had become a liability. And for that, she had been killed. The town was shaken. How could this have happened? How could someone who had worn the badge, who had taken an oath to uphold justice, have been capable of something so monstrous? It wasn't long before the evidence against John became overwhelming. Surveillance footage, phone records, the last text messages Jessica had sent. The moment everything clicked into place, authorities moved in. John Doe was arrested and charged with murder. But the case didn't stop there. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered his full involvement in the drug ring, linking him to years of illegal activity, corruption, and conspiracy. What had once been a respected career was now reduced to nothing more than a long trail of lies and destruction. The man who had spent years chasing criminals had now become one himself. In the courtroom, he sat stone-faced as the evidence was laid out. His former colleagues, officers who had once looked up to him, stood on the other side, watching as justice. The last text messages Jessica had sent. The moment everything clicked into place, authorities moved in. John Doe was arrested and charged with murder. But the case didn't stop there. As investigators dug deeper, They uncovered his full involvement in the drug ring, linking him to years of illegal activity, corruption, and conspiracy. What had once been a respected career was now reduced to nothing more than a long trail of lies and destruction. The man who had spent years chasing criminals had now become one himself. In the courtroom, he sat stone-faced as the evidence was laid out. His former colleagues, officers who had once looked up to him, stood on the other side, watching as justice was finally served. His defense team tried to paint a different picture, but the facts were undeniable. The truth was out. And John Doe would never wear a badge again. This tragic case serves as a grim reminder of how power, greed, and fear can lead even those sworn to protect the law down a dark and dangerous path. The damage wasn't just to the justice system, it was to the people left behind. Jessica's family will never get to see her become the mother she dreamed of being. Her unborn child will never get to take a first breath. A life was stolen, not just because of love gone wrong, but because of secrets too big to stay hidden. In the end, this case wasn't just about a murder. It was about corruption. It was about the lengths some will go to protect themselves. And most of all, it was about the innocent lives caught in the crossfire. And as John sits behind bars, stripped of the power he once abused, the question remains, how many others like him are still out there, hiding behind the badge? This case leaves us with more questions than answers. What do you think drove John to kill Jessica? Was it fear? Desperation? Or was this a man who had been living a double life for so long that murder felt like the only way to keep his secrets buried? And the biggest question of all, could this tragedy have been prevented? If Jessica had gone to the police sooner, would she still be alive today? Or was she doomed the moment she uncovered the truth? We want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell us, what do you think really happened that night? If you found this story shocking, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into true crime cases just like this one. And don't forget to turn on notifications, so you never miss an update on the darkest crimes and the secrets they try to hide. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe. While this case may have been resolved in the courts, it raises an unsettling question. How many others like John Doe are still out there? Corrupt officers, hidden in plain sight, abusing their power, running criminal operations under the very system designed to stop them. Jessica uncovered one dark secret, but how many more remain buried? Was John acting alone, or was he just one piece of a much larger network? Find out next time as we dive deeper into the chilling world of crime, corruption, and the hidden dangers lurking where you least expect them.